Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Mona Kosar Abdi. Here are the top 5 things to know this Thursday. Number 1, the fallout from that attack on Saudi Arabia's oil industry.
President Trump has announced new sanctions against Iran in the aftermath of the attack. The president said nothing is off the table, but so far he is not calling for a military response, and he says he hasn't ruled out talks with Iran.
But during a visit to Saudi Arabia, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo again placed the blame on Iran, calling the attack an act of war. Number 2, a developing story from Washington this morning, where a promise that President Trump made to a foreign leader is reportedly the subject of a whistleblower complaint.
That's according to the Washington Post. It's unclear what the promise was, and the foreign leader has not been revealed, but the complaint has been deemed credible and urgent by the Inspector General for the intelligence community.
Despite the concern, the Director of National Intelligence has refused to turn over the complaint to the House Intelligence Committee, which Democrats say violates the law. The director is set to testify before the committee next week.
On to number 3, an American Airlines mechanic is being held in Miami after prosecutors revealed evidence that he may be sympathetic to ISIS.
He's already accused of sabotaging a passenger jet. He was denied bail after the FBI says it found ISIS videos on his phone. The arrest is raising questions about airline worker background checks.
We head to Canada for number 4, where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has apologized for appearing in brownface in 2001. He also admits to wearing blackface during a talent show in high school.
The photos just came to light ahead of next month's election. And finally, number 5, Merriam-Webster has added a few hundred new words to its vocabulary.
The dictionary people are adding 530 new words or definitions. New entries include dad joke, escape room, fatberg, and vacay.
Okay, the most notable definition comes with the word they. It was expanded to include its use in reference to a person whose gender identity is non-binary.
Let's get right to our big story there, that growing fallout from the attack on Saudi Arabia's oil industry. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, meeting with the Saudi Crown Prince Wednesday, called the attack an act of war and said Iran must be held responsible. ABC's Elizabeth Herr is here with the new details. Elizabeth, good morning.
Kenneth, good morning. Iran is already struggling under intense U.S. sanctions, but President Trump says more sanctions are on the way and military action is still on the table. This morning, President Trump is promising new sanctions on Iran, and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo not mincing words.
We were blessed that there were no Americans killed in this attack, but anytime you have an act of war of this nature, there's always risk that that could happen.
Pompeo blasting Iran and the Saudi military backing the U.S., releasing what they say is new evidence against Tehran, displaying charred remnants of drones and a missile, claiming this surveillance video shows the missiles coming from the direction of Iran. In response, President Trump telling reporters he is exploring all options, including what he called the ultimate option.
You say the ultimate option? Are you talking
No, I'm saying the ultimate option, meaning go in war. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
The president standing here with his 4th national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, who replaced John Bolton, ousted last week, and now slamming the president's foreign policy. Bolton's remarks at a private event first reported by Politico and later confirmed by ABC News. Bolton saying any negotiations with North Korea and Iran were doomed to failure. President Trump fired back.
We are doing it the right way. We're doing it the smart way. John was not able to work with anybody.
As for Iran, no details yet, but President Trump says some very significant sanctions will be added onto Iran. Iranian officials have already warned that any U.S. retaliation will be met with a rapid and crushing response. Kenneth?
All right, Elizabeth Herr, thank you.
Moving on, the U.S. military has shelled out at least $184,000 on layovers at President Trump's golf resort in Scotland since he took office. The Pentagon said dozens of its crews have spent the night at the Trump Turnberry Resort as the nearby airport became a major transit point for Air Force personnel. The information was requested by the House Oversight Committee looking into claims the president is profiting from Defense Department spending.
The Federal Reserve has cut interest rates by 1/4 percentage point. It's the second cut in 3 months. President Trump was unhappy with the move, tweeting that he wanted interest rates down to 0. Meanwhile, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell left the door open to additional rate cuts. Lower rates make it a good time to refinance mortgages.
President Trump is threatening to unleash the EPA on San Francisco as the city struggles to find solutions to address the thorny issue of homelessness.
The president said he will slap the city with a notice of environmental violation. And earlier, HUD Secretary Ben Carson rejected a request from California's biggest cities seeking more federal aid to fight homelessness. The president said liberal policies are to blame for the crisis. Now to the airline mechanic accused of sabotaging an American Airlines flight in Miami. Prosecutors have revealed he may have ties to ISIS. The family of the longtime mechanic refused to answer questions outside court Wednesday. ABC's Trevor Ault has the latest on the investigation.
An American Airlines mechanic is being held without bond, accused of sabotaging a passenger jet. 60-year-old Abdul Alani, a longtime employee of American Airlines, was arrested at Miami International Airport 2 weeks ago, accused of disabling the navigational system of a 737 jet carrying 150 people. The alleged sabotage caught before the plane took off.
The flying public puts a huge amount of faith in pilots, cabin crews, and mechanics. The FAA should be able to answer to the public what kind of level of background check is required to keep these people from committing crimes that could endanger the flying public.
Alani is insisting he wasn't trying to hurt anyone, claiming he was just trying to get overtime pay by creating a maintenance problem. But the FBI searched his phone and say they discovered ISIS videos depicting graphic murders. Investigators also say another American Airlines employee told them Alani's brother was an ISIS member and the mechanic had visited him in Iraq. Authorities say Alani also received an article about airplane crashes involving the very sensor he had sought to disable.
It's very concerning that he would have a fascination with previous failures in the 737 MAX that led to crashes, and that's where he actually performed the sabotage on a different kind of 737.
And Alani allegedly shared a message asking for Allah to take action against the kafirs, or non-believers. So far, Alani's not facing any terror-related charges. Trevor Ault, ABC News, New York.
The triple E mosquito-borne virus is now being blamed for 5 deaths, the worst outbreak in a decade. Health officials have confirmed 21 cases of eastern equine encephalitis in 6 states from Michigan to Maine. After 2 more people died in Michigan, health officials there in some communities are urging parents to keep children indoors after dusk, at least until the first frost.
A United Auto Workers source says General Motors cutting off health coverage for striking workers is an unnecessary scare tactic. The union strike against GM is entering its 4th day. Now that the company isn't paying for strikers' health care, those costs have been shifted to a union fund. A labor analyst calls GM's move the same as pouring gasoline on a fire.
Teen climate activist Greta Thunberg went before Congress to make her case, but she deliberately had very little to say.
The 16-year-old from Sweden has attracted worldwide attention while sounding the alarm on the threats of climate change. She told lawmakers this is not the time and place for dreams. This is the time to wake up. Instead of delivering prepared remarks, she went straight to the science.
I am submitting this report as my testimony because I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to listen to the scientists. And I want you to unite behind the science. And then I want you to take real action.
Greta is among the young activists calling for a day of global protest tomorrow. Hundreds of thousands of people around the world are expected to take part ahead of the UN Climate Summit scheduled for next week.
And here's a shocking scene from a high school soccer game in Jamaica. Several players collapsed after being struck by lightning. The match was stopped immediately as the boys were treated on the field. One player was unresponsive and taken off the field on a stretcher. He was revived and is recovering. And
a Chick-fil-A staffer in Southern California is being celebrated for his life-saving skills.
This is so on brand for Chick-fil-A. The drive-thru worker rushed to the aid of a man who went into cardiac arrest outside of a restaurant in Chula Vista last week. The staffer, who wants to go to nursing school, then performed CPR. The victim fortunately survived. The worker said he just was in the right place at the right time.
Now make sure that your order is right and that they save your life.
What more can you ask from a chicken company?
Hey, coming up, Friends turns 25. We talked to some of the cast members about what their characters will be doing today.
But first, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is apologizing for wearing brown face. We'll have the latest details after this. Welcome back. We now turn to that chilling back-to-school public service announcement showing a school shooting from a student's perspective.
Many parents say it's difficult to watch, but the group behind it says that's the point. This is the back-to-school PSA being called brutal and hard to watch.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
The beginning of the 1-minute video shows students talking about their day-to-day supplies.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
Then a troubling turn as the children begin to use their school supplies to protect themselves from an active shooter.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils too.
Then the terrifying finale.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Showing that student there, I think it really reaches right into your heart and soul.
The video was made by Sandy Hook Promise, a nonprofit group that trains students and adults to recognize the signs of gun violence.
We're just depicting the horror of a child sitting alone in a school being hunted. I mean, that is a horrible thing to have to think about, but we have to think about it.
Mark Barden is the organization's co-founder. His son Daniel was one of the 20 first graders killed in the Sandy Hook school shooting. 6 adults were also killed. Barden hopes the PSA will inspire people to take action.
Unfortunately, I know that my 7-year-old was in that position before he died. I don't wish that on anybody. And I made a promise almost 7 years ago to do everything I can to prevent other families from having to live this pain.
Sandy Hook Promise says its message is preventing school shootings and violence is the real back-to-school essential for America.
Moving on now to Britain, where the Supreme Court there is reviewing the Prime Minister's move to temporarily suspend Parliament. The court will decide whether the government broke the law, and a verdict is expected soon. So let's go across the pond to Maggie Rulli in the London Bureau for more. Good morning, Maggie. Hello. You're in London.
Good morning. I know, this is fun. My first time talking with you guys across the pond, already having a blast. It's a huge day here, though. You mentioned sort of what's going on with Brexit. And let me tell you, as someone who just moved here on Monday, it's been a strong learning curve. But Kenneth and Mona, nothing makes you learn quicker than going to the pub with some of the guys here and seeing how heated the conversation gets surrounding Brexit. I learned a lot my first few nights over some pints. And today it's going to be more of that showdown in the Supreme Court. You kind of just mentioned it leading in, Mona, but today it's more of the same. Boris Johnson, Supreme Court here in England, hearing those cases that came up in the high courts in both England and Scotland. Now, the High Court in England at first sort of sided with Johnson's case. They said they agree Boris Johnson has always stood by the fact that he suspended Parliament simply because that's what you do when you're getting ready for the next parliamentary session, and that's the only reason why he suspended it. But the High Court in Scotland challenged that. They sided with the argument that he actually suspended Parliament because he wanted to disrupt the Brexit conversation, to delay the Brexit conversation as we're coming up on that hard deadline at the end of October. Now, what gets really sticky here, guys, is that Boris Johnson advised the Queen to suspend Parliament. And when doing so, he gave them his reasoning that he was doing it simply because that's what you do when you start this new parliamentary session. So if the Supreme Court here in the UK sides with Scotland, it also is going to mean that Johnson lied to the Queen. Now, I'm new here, guys, but I watched The Crown, so I know that that is a big no-no, and you do not want to lie to the Queen. And so if we get that decision today or this week or sometime soon, it is going to be a massive headline. We've been following this all week. Today, the big update is that another former prime minister is going to come out and sort of call out Boris Johnson. So that's what we're looking for today. Could get an update, might not get an update today, but definitely everyone here is having a close eye on this.
So, Maggie Rulli, my old friend, I'm Kenneth Moten. I'm not really sure if you remember me since you have jumped across the pond now.
You know, I've forgotten
and left
all of those.
us here. I will have plenty of fun with you in just a moment, but we do have to talk about something serious, and that's Canada. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is apologizing for wearing brown face makeup to a costume party in 2001 when he was a teacher, so when he was an adult, when he would know better. So what's he saying about this?
Well, I think, Ken, that's the great point. This is a story we've heard so much stateside. It seems like every month there's a new politician coming out with these photos from decades ago that incriminate them in some way. This time it's happening to Justin Trudeau, and it's coming at also a really important time. He's running for re-election. The photos that you're talking about, they're not great. He went on the record saying he went to an Arabian Nights themed party, and you see the photo clearly dressed in brown face. And as you mentioned, one of the sticking points here is that he was in his late 20s, almost 30 years old. He was a teacher at this school. And so this is going to be huge as he goes into his re-election campaign. What is this going to mean for his future? Now, he was quick to come out and apologize, but I want you guys to listen to his apology and see if you think it holds merit.
In 2001, when I was a teacher out in Vancouver, I attended an end-of-year gala where the theme was Arabian Nights. And I dressed up in an Aladdin costume and put makeup on. I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better, but I didn't. And I'm really sorry.
So he's sort of out with a sincere, supposedly, apology, saying he regrets what he did. He also mentions, though, that it wasn't his first time wearing brownface. He also wore blackface previously, a few years before this. So, he's kind of trying to air all of his dirty laundry here, get it out, be the first person to report it. But again, the question now is that apology actually going to hold up? Will voters still have confidence in him? He's really made his career saying he's a champion for minorities, a champion for immigrant rights. And so this is all sort of coming into question right now again as he's trying to get reelected. So we've seen this a lot with politicians in the States. What is going to mean for a politician in Canada? It's sort of the big question right now.
Well, now we're going to send it over to Paris, where a strange sight on the River Seine as some new bubble taxis are being tested out. What do you think? Are these going to catch on?
I hope so. I love these gimmicks all the time. This water taxi, it's in a bubble. You get beautiful sights. It also goes up on those hydrofoils, which, one, make it very faster. Two, saves a lot of energy because it doesn't have that friction on the water. They're sort of saying this is a potentially eco-friendly taxi. Also, it just looks really cool. And the best thing, guys, is that you can order it up on an app like Uber. So, if you want to head out in the bubble, you can just sort of call it up on your phone, and it fits 4 people. So the 3 of us could go, but who would our 4th be? Should we invite Will? Or I don't know, does anyone here in London who wants to go in the bubble taxi with us?
Where's Julia McFarlane?
Oh, okay, we have approximately 1 person raising their hand right now.
There's so many. James
They're
Longman.
Fighting over it. They're fighting over
Ian
it.
Pannell is simply in a war zone, but he might go with you. I'm just so excited that all of these Londoners now get to experience the excitement, the joy, the pleasure of Maggie Ruley coming from the States.
You are going to make me cry. That is the nicest thing.
So how's it been over there?
I know. What's the metric system like?
Guys, I'm confused all the time. I was running on the treadmill this morning, and it was not in miles. And I thought I was going really fast, and it turns out I wasn't. And it's been a strong learning curve.
All right, Maggie Ruley, thank you so much. It's so great to see you lighting up the London Bureau there. We will talk to you soon.
See ya.
Let's check our notifications now.
All right.
With this. Plenty of Fish now banning people from using face filters. The dating site says most of its users find the filters deceptive, saying they heavily alter someone's appearance.
What? What am I going to do with the dog ears now? Plenty of Fish has 150 million users worldwide. The site is also using artificial intelligence to analyze every previously posted picture on the site. Any of them containing a face filter will be removed.
So that's our question of the day. Is it deceptive to use these filters on dating apps? Tell us what you think in the comments or tweet us at ABC News Live. Let us know.
There's levels to it. There's the realistic looking ones that you can't really tell. Then there's the ones where clearly I don't have bunny ears, guys.
And I'm like, I thought you had bunny ears. That's what I'm attracted to.
Well, we talked about water taxis. Now let's talk about the longest water slide. And we have a new world record. China coming through. They unveiled the world's longest water slide. It's 1.7 miles long. And Kenneth Moten is going to go down it.
So I said no earlier, but it seems like it's not so much. Well, I was going to say it's not that steep, and then I see it's on the side of the mountain.
But it goes 20 miles an hour, so it's pretty fast.
That is fast. 1.7 miles long. Okay.
Can you imagine by like a half a mile, you're like, ooh.
I was like, I'm tired of screaming. I've been screaming for nearly 2 miles.
And then once you get to the mile mark, you just go shoot.
Oh, God.
It goes down off the cliff. Moving on, a Friends pop-up shop is marking the 25th anniversary of the iconic sitcom that put Smelly Cat on the map. So we sent our own Will Gans to check it out. Will?
Yeah, that's right, you guys. The Friends pop-up sold out in just 3 hours, but luckily I scored a ticket, and so did some of the original cast, who met me inside to spill some Friends secrets 25 years after the hit show premiered.
They've been there for you for 2.5 decades. Friends celebrating its 25th anniversary.
This is everybody. This is Chandler and Phoebe and Joey. And you remember my brother Ross? Sure.
Hey. So after 10 seasons, 62 Primetime Emmy nominations, and millions of fans around the world, how does one celebrate 25 years of Friends? How about a trip down memory lane with real Friends props, Friends set pieces, that iconic haircut, the Rachel, all at an immersive and interactive 8,500 square foot exhibit right where Friends took place, New York City.
Oh my God!
Complete with some of the original cast members.
Oh my God.
Not bad. Yes. Oh my God, he's good at that.
Maggie Wheeler, who played Janice, popping into the pop-up, spilling some secrets from the set. That iconic Janice laugh,
Kill me now.
not scripted.
In the first scene that I shot with Matthew, we were rehearsing and I thought, this guy is hilarious. Like, what am I going to do? He's going to crack me up. So I thought, well, I better come up with a laugh. This character has to be able to laugh or I'm never going to make it through the scene.
And that's when I just looked at him and went, no, that's okay.
And how about Gunther's legendary platinum hairdo? James Michael Tyler, the actor who played him, explains.
This is probably the best happy accident and mistake I'd ever made in my entire life. The evening before I went in as an extra for the first episode of Friends, a friend of mine said, hey, let me bleach your hair. I'm trying to practice to be a stylist. So I said, oh, go ahead, it's fine. So I went in with the white hair and I had to keep it for 10 years because the producers loved it. But you know what? I don't know if there would have been a Gunther unless he had that look.
Gunther or not, Friends fans who come by the pop-up can celebrate 25 years of the show inside a recreated Central Perk and treat themselves to coffee on the classic couch. Diehards can also channel their inner Monica.
But this will work.
Pivot! Or Ross.
Pivot! Pivot!
Pivot!
Chandler.
Okay, buddy boy, here it is.
Joey.
You hide my clothes, I'm wearing everything you own.
And the whole gang.
What is it about Friends that you think has such staying power? Why are folks still so in love with the show 25 years after it premiered?
You know, it's about a time when you first have left your family, and so your friends become your family, and people resonate with that.
Which is why, at its peak, Friends brought in more than 50 million viewers per episode.
The real, actual friendship and love on that set, you know, you feel it when you're watching the show.
And if you're wondering what these classic characters might be up to today,
hopefully Gunther is over Rachel by now. And hopefully that would have been a long time ago because that's just kind of unhealthy, to be honest.
And for Janice?
I think she's designing clothing. I think she has a line and it's all leopard, everything.
Do you ever wish that she ended up with Chandler?
Of course. Absolutely.
And of course, I had to ask.
Is there any chance that everyone will come back together for a movie, for a one episode, 22 minutes? Do you think there's any hope?
Look, honey, I'm not the boss, all right? But if the phone rings, I'll be there.
So if, like Phoebe, you don't even have a plan for how to celebrate the 25th anniversary, don't worry, it's a moo point. Select theaters all over the country will show 12 episodes of Friends on the big screen for the first time ever, beginning this weekend.
Friends really is just one of those iconic series you have to watch. And I say that because I read earlier that Phoebe, Lisa Kudrow, has never seen an episode.
What? How do you manage that?
Blows my mind. Everyone has seen an episode of Friends.
Even if you don't want to see an episode, it airs all the time.
She also says it was very hard for her to play that character who is obviously a little ditzy, who I actually think was one of the smartest characters on the show, but
Yeah.
I don't know what that says about me, but
in the show, they say everyone's like a combo of two of the friends. I feel like I'm a Rachel Phoebe combo.
Okay.
Who do you guys relate
I'm definitely
to?
a Rachel Monica.
I see that for
Yeah.
you.
Okay, and I'm probably a little Ross / Phoebe.
Yes, I can see that too.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Hey, thanks, Will. Well, up next, we've got a look at the big events coming up later today.
Plus, a man's request for some beer money leads to a big score. We'll tell you where all that cash money is going after this.
Cash money.
Here's what to watch out for today. First Lady Melania Trump will attend the reopening of the Washington Monument hosted by the National Park Service. The First Lady will participate in a ribbon-cutting ceremony and take a ceremonial ride to the top of the monument. The popular tourist attraction closed back in 2016 to replace an aging elevator and upgrade security systems.
Facebook co-founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg is in Washington, D.C. to meet with policymakers and talk about future internet regulation, according to a Facebook spokesperson.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, Reverend Al Sharpton will testify to the House Judiciary Committee on policing practices, and bipartisan members of Congress will hold a press conference to launch the Congressional Caucus to end the youth vaping epidemic.
And the three major candidates for governor of Louisiana will face off for the first time in a debate. Incumbent Democrat Governor John Bel Edwards will take the stage with two Republicans, businessman Eddie Rispone and Congressman Ralph Abraham.
Plus, don't forget to tune into the debrief for an update on all of our top stories and the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest political headlines.
Finally, a beer money sign that was supposed to be a joke is raising serious money for a good cause.
Yeah, Saturday morning, Carson King was part of the crowd watching ESPN's College Game Day in Ames, Iowa. He held up a handmade sign which read, "Busch Light supply needs replenished." And then he included his Venmo handle. He thought that someone might pity him and his friends, send a few bucks their way. But last night, he was stunned to see, and we were all stunned to hear, that the donations are up to $67,000.
I didn't think it would be on TV. I didn't think anyone would actually donate to it. I thought, oh, what would be kind of funny? You know, maybe someone in the crowd will see it and send me money for, a case of Busch Light, get some lattes. And it just really took off.
King decided to use his good fortune to help others, so he's donating all the money to the University of Iowa Steed Family Children's Hospital, except for $15, which he will use to buy a case of beer.
Just a little 15.
He has to. I mean, after all of that, right?
It's actually much cheaper than that, I'm pretty sure. So you can buy a few cases.
Lord, I need him to elevate his beer taste, too.
I know, right?
Busch Light, come on. Well, you guys can donate to my avocado toast fund as well.
I'm about to go get some avocados right now because we're done. It's over. Goodbye. We will see you tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.